She arrived late, wearing the same red lipstick I used to wear when I still believed in witnesses. Clara Mendez, 29, art curator, polished, dangerous in quiet ways. The color didn't suit her undertone. And that was the first thing I noticed, because it used to suit mine. He was with her, of course. Marcus Hale. He had that kind of confidence that aged like wine left open too long, arrogant, flat, and sour by the end. He introduced her to the gallery like a prize, as if she were proof he'd survived me. But the moment our eyes met across the marble floor, I saw it. She'd been studying me. The way she carried her purse, the cadence of her speech. Even the subtle way she tilted her chin before smiling. My ghost had gotten to her before I did. The exhibit was mine. My first solo show since the scandal. A collection titled A Study of Damage. Sculptures built from broken glass and melted resin. Each piece shaped like the human heart but wrong. Too many chambers, too few exits. He'd been my muse before he became my theft. He'd taken my ideas, my contacts, even my signature brushstroke. When he left, he said, "You were always the theory. She's the practice." So when I saw her standing there, lips painted the same shade I'd worn the night he broke me, I almost laughed. It wasn't rage I felt, it was symmetry. She approached me at the end of the night, after the crowd had thinned to murmurs and champagne. "Your work is unsettling," she said. "It feels like someone remembering a dream they weren't supposed to have." Her voice trembled slightly, and I wondered if she'd rehearsed it in the mirror. "Thank you," I said. "That's exactly what I wanted." She hesitated, looking at me the way one looks at a wound that hasn't finished closing. "He told me you were cruel," she whispered. "Did he tell you why?" She didn't answer. Instead, she smiled, polite, brittle, and walked away, leaving the faint scent of my old perfume behind. I found out later she'd bought one of the sculptures. Piece number 7, The Apology You Never Said. Paid in cash. No delivery address. A week passed before she called. "It cracked," she said. "That's impossible. It's reinforced resin." "It cracked anyway." Her voice was calm. "It's bleeding color." When I arrived, her apartment was immaculate, minimalist, surgical. The sculpture sat in the center of the room on a pedestal of white marble. A single fracture ran down its center, thin but deep, leaking faint streaks of red paint that hadn't been there before. I touched it. Warm, breathing, almost. "What did you do?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "You tell me. You made it." That's when I saw her reflection in the glass surface, my face instead of hers. The same lipstick, the same tilt of the head, but the eyes, her eyes, were calm, steady. Like she'd already forgiven me for everything I hadn't confessed. Marcus called the next day. His voice shook. "Clara's gone." "Gone where?" "I don't know. She left a note. Just your name." I hung up before he could say more. When I turned, the sculpture was back in my studio, unbroken, gleaming under the low light. But now, the resin shimmered faintly red, as though the lipstick had melted into it. I leaned closer, breath fogging the surface. For a moment, I saw her reflection again, smiling, calm, whispering something I almost recognized. "We wear the same mouth now." 3 days after Clara disappeared, Marcus called again, but this time, it wasn't guilt in his voice. It was fear. "She's not gone," he said. "She's here." Then silence, just breathing, shallow and deliberate, like he was trying not to make noise. "She's wearing the lipstick," he whispered. "The one you used to wear." The line went dead before I could answer. That same night, I found a package waiting outside my studio, wrapped in black silk, tied with a thin red ribbon. No name, no return address. Inside was the tube of lipstick I'd thrown away the night Marcus left me. It looked untouched. But when I uncapped it, the color had changed, not red, but the deep, bruised shade of blood that's already begun to dry. Beneath it, a note written in Clara's hand: "You can't kill what you create." I didn't sleep. At dawn, I drove to Marcus's house. The windows were open, the curtains trembling like lungs. The smell hit me first: perfume, whiskey, and heat. He was sitting in the living room, eyes open, mouth parted, the glass still in his hand. The coroner later said it was heart failure. I knew better. There was a lipstick print on the rim, too fresh to be memory. They ruled it natural. I stayed silent. But that night, when I returned home, my reflection didn't move. She smiled a second too late, that faint, crooked grin Clara had perfected to look like mine. "You should thank me," she whispered through the glass. "Now we both have him." I threw the mirror across the room. It didn't shatter, it bled. Thin red lines trickled from the cracks, slow and deliberate, spelling a single word: again. By morning, the sculpture she'd bought, the one that had cracked, was gone from my studio. In its place stood a new piece, smooth, gleaming, flawless. The resin shimmered under the light, and inside it, faint but visible, two red lips pressed against the surface, like a signature from beneath. When I leaned closer, I could smell her perfume. I could almost hear her voice, low and steady, whispering the same thing over and over until it sounded like prayer. "Revenge wears red lipstick, and now so do you." The police called it coincidence. But coincidence doesn't leave fingerprints in lipstick on your mirror. 3 days after Marcus's funeral, I woke to find the scent of perfume in my hair and my mouth stained faintly red, though I hadn't worn lipstick in months. The tube she'd sent me, Clara's lipstick, sat on my nightstand, open, warm, as if freshly used. The air was thick with something sweet and metallic, like sugar laced with blood. I told myself I was dreaming, but the taste on my tongue said otherwise. I spent the day in silence, painting over the walls of my studio with black enamel, burying reflections before they could speak. Each brushstroke covered another memory, another fragment of her smile, his laugh, my rage. Still, the humming wouldn't stop, the low vibration that started when she vanished. It pulsed through the floor, into the soles of my feet, into the bones of my hands. When I pressed my palm against the canvas, the paint trembled, and for a moment, it wasn't black anymore. It was red. That night, someone knocked on my door. 3 slow taps, deliberate, like punctuation. I didn't answer. But a voice came through, soft and close. "You left the light on," she said. I knew that voice. Too even. Too calm. I looked through the peephole, nothing. But when I turned back, she was already inside. Not Clara as I remembered her, something between the reflection and the woman. Her skin shimmered faintly under the dim light, and the lipstick was perfect, too perfect. "You shouldn't be here," I said. She smiled. "Neither should you." Her voice was layered now, mine and hers, one echoing the other. "I was supposed to end with him," she said. "But you kept remembering. You wore the color again." I shook my head. "You're not real." "Real is repetition," she said, stepping closer. "We become what we refuse to bury." She reached out and touched my face. Her fingers were warm, leaving faint red smears where they brushed my skin. I froze. The scent of her perfume filled my throat until I couldn't breathe. You wanted him to suffer, she whispered. He did. But what happens when revenge runs out of men? The lights flickered. The mirror on the wall rippled like water, and for an instant, I saw all three of us inside it, Marcus pale and still, Clara smiling softly, and me in between, wearing the same red mouth. The reflection leaned forward, whispering something I couldn't hear, and then the glass split down the center, thin as a vein. When I woke, she was gone. The floor beneath the mirror was streaked in lipstick fingerprints, each one forming the outline of a face. My own. The hum was louder now, coming from inside the new sculpture, the one that had appeared after Marcus died. Its surface shimmered red, alive. I pressed my hand against it, and it was warm, pulsing faintly in rhythm with my heartbeat. Then, from inside the resin, a voice, low, certain, calm, whispered, "You can't tell where I end anymore, can you?" By the 4th month, I stopped checking my reflection. I'd learned that the woman in the glass wasn't always me. Sometimes her mouth would move when mine didn't. Sometimes she'd smile too easily, the red on her lips too vivid, too deliberate. I'd tried covering every mirror with cloth, but by then, anything could reflect her, metal, water, even my eyes in another person's. The world had become a hall of repetition, and every version of her was closer than the last. The gallery called to ask about my next exhibit. They said collectors wanted to see more emotional realism. I almost laughed. What's more real than obsession pretending to be art? I told them I was working on a final piece, something immersive. That wasn't a lie. The sculpture in my studio, Clara's sculpture, the one that had replaced the cracked version, had started changing. At first it was subtle. The resin shifted under the light, shadows moving like veins beneath translucent skin. But then I began hearing it breathe. Quietly, rhythmically, almost human. I couldn't stop touching it. Every night I'd run my fingers along its surface, feeling the warmth trapped inside. It responded to me, pulsing harder when I spoke, cooling when I stopped. I whispered questions to it, half mocking, half terrified. "What do you want?" I'd ask. To be finished, it would seem to answer, the hum deepening into words I couldn't quite understand. Then, one night, I noticed something impossible. A faint red imprint of lips pressed against the inside of the sculpture, moving as if trying to speak. The resin fogged slightly with every exhale, like glass touched by breath. I leaned closer. The whisper came through, soft but certain. "You made me beautiful, but not enough." I stumbled back, knocking over a can of paint. The red spilled everywhere, bleeding toward the base of the sculpture. As it touched, the surface absorbed it, rippling like water. The hum grew into a heartbeat. "You wanted revenge," the voice continued. "But all you built was another mouth to speak your guilt." The lights flickered, and her silhouette appeared inside the resin, Clara, or what she'd become. Her eyes were open, calm, aware. "You thought you could end me," she said. "But revenge is a circle. You just learned to draw it better." The sculpture cracked from within, a thin red line racing upward until it reached the crown. The air filled with her perfume, the same one that haunted every version of her I'd buried. When the resin burst, it didn't shatter. It melted. The figure inside stepped forward, barefooted, perfect, wearing my face in her mouth. She looked at me with something like pity. "Revenge wears red lipstick," she said softly. "And now, so does creation." I opened my mouth to scream, but the sound that came out wasn't mine. It was hers. Calm, composed, deliberate. The new her smiled, wiped the red from her lips with her thumb, and pressed it against my forehead like a blessing. Then everything went dark. When I woke, the studio was immaculate. The sculpture was whole again, unbroken, gleaming under the soft morning light. My reflection in the resin smiled back, lips painted red. For a moment, I wondered if she was still inside, or if I was. By the fifth night, the studio no longer felt like mine. The sculptures, once static and obedient, had begun rearranging themselves while I slept. The cracked resin hearts faced the wall now, and every mirrored surface reflected red. It wasn't paint. It wasn't light. It pulsed like breath trapped in glass. When I spoke, my voice came back with her tone layered beneath, as if the air itself had memorized her. I'd stopped trying to explain it. Grief, guilt, supernatural recursion, it didn't matter. I'd built something meant to wound. And wounds don't stop bleeding just because the artist walks away. That night, I found the lipstick again on the windowsill, standing upright, gleaming like an invitation. The label had worn off. The bullet inside was flattened to a smooth curve, as if someone had pressed it against a mouth that never stopped moving. When I looked closer, I saw faint fingerprints, mine, hers, indistinguishable. The windowpane fogged as if someone on the other side was breathing too. In the reflection, she stood behind me, perfect as ever, her smile calm, inevitable. "You finished the piece," she said. "Now it's time to wear it." I turned. Empty room. Only the faint hum of the sculpture, rising, falling, sinking to my pulse. I touched my lips, they were already red. The resin figure in the corner, her last piece, or maybe mine, had changed again. Its chest was hollow now, a cavity filled with shifting light. Inside it, faintly, the shape of a face. I stepped closer. It was mine, smiling faintly from beneath the glass. "Revenge wears red lipstick," it whispered, my own voice returning through the hollow. I pressed my palm to the surface. Warm, then burning. The light inside spread up my arm, seeping beneath my skin like liquid fire. The hum grew deafening. My reflection in the resin leaned forward and kissed the inside of the glass, leaving a perfect red print. When the heat subsided, I was alone again. The sculpture was smooth, whole, flawless. But its mouth, my mouth, was slightly open, as if still speaking. Days later, the gallery called. They'd received a new delivery, unsigned, titled "Revenge Wears Red Lipstick." They asked if it was mine. I told them it wasn't. But that night, when I passed the window of the gallery, I saw it displayed under soft lights. My figure stood behind the glass, lips red, smiling faintly, watching me. The reflection shifted when I stopped to look. For a moment, it raised its hand, as if to reapply the color.